Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Manager Seagull. I'd worked for this company that sold overpriced TED online to people who, if they did a simple Google search, could find said TED easier. I did not mind the job and was that guy who turned up early, logged on, and to be fair, it was an easy job and the time flew by. After a few years we had a management change and this new manager in charge of the center was a jerk, dim and angry. He got the nickname Seagull as he'd fly in, squawk loudly, find someone to poo on, then vanish into his office to do very little. One day I was going to be late. I called the number to let them know the train I was getting was not there, and so I had to wait for another one, and no answer. So I get in, and Seagull decides to make a big issue concerning my late arrival. He's got forms out and advises he's going to be making this a disciplinary issue. Fair enough, I said. Then pointed out that for it to be a disciplinary issue, he needs to be informing HR and needs another manager in to witness all this. I then gave Seagull the number for HR and advised that I'd be starting work and would happily make up the time regarding my being late. He says no, that this needs sorting out and flaps off to find another manager. Eventually, an hour or so later, he arrives with the HR manager and starts moaning about staff being continually late. I point out that this is my first instance and I try to contact him and have the call logs on my phone. He's determined to push this, so I point out that I'm not signing a disciplinary form over events beyond my control. The HR manager agrees with me and I can see that Seagull is not happy. So I decide if he wants to play by the rules, I'll give him another headache. Having wasted the best part of the day, it's agreed that nothing is going to be happening. I however decide from then on to work my fixed rota, getting in early each day and sitting at my spot, watching the call board flash with lots of incoming calls and doing nothing until a few seconds before the appointed start time. Seagull hated that, but couldn't say anything, and I found out that HR got him sacked for abusing his power later. I heard he upset a few staff and they quit, and the company had to pay out compensation for it. The next story is called Too Young. Back in my college days in the late 90s, I worked in my college's Alumni Communications Center. In reality, it's a call center where college students work to ask the low-giving alumni for money. The college had professional folks to handle the big mega donors. I, luckily, wasn't a student caller, which seemed awful. I, a sophomore, was, and this was the official job title, data entry. We also had a couple of call coaches who were seniors, who would monitor the callers and give them feedback on how to do a better job at asking alumni for money. Typically donations in the $100 to $250 range. When callers made a call, they recorded the outcome of the call on a sheet of paper. I would then collect these sheets and go to the sole computer in the call center and record the data. Most of the results I entered would be no answer or left a message on a voice machine. Sometimes we got a donation, so I would enter the caller's outcome into the computer. Somewhere else, the alumni department would generate a donation envelope that was mailed to the alumni, so the alumni could then mail a check back to us. Now, about 10% of the donations would be by credit card. At the end of the night, after the callers left, I would spend about 30 minutes processing the credit cards through this dial-up credit card machine. I did this without issue, for 2 months, September and October. Now enters Karen, the new boss lady over the call center. She finally notices the extra 30 minutes on my timesheet each day and asks me about it sometime in late October. I tell her that I process the credit cards after everyone leaves for the night. That's how I was trained by the previous data entry person. This upsets Karen, who says I'm far too young to be handling credit card information. She makes it clear that I am to stick to my job of only entering the caller's data. Period. End of story. Data entry only. No handling the money. The money is to be handled only by the grown-ups. To be perfectly clear, these were credit card numbers handwritten on a sheet of paper. Absolutely no cash money involved on my end. But as she insisted, I stopped processing the credit card donations. I set them in a pile at the end of the night, right by the credit card machine. And with each passing night, the pile grows and grows. November ends, and this pile is now 250 pages or so thick. It also wasn't my job to ask questions like, who was processing the credit card sheets. Since the month ended and no credit cards were processed, Karen absolutely failed to hit her fundraising goals. She starts to berate the call coaches and the callers for not doing a good enough job. Karen starts spending more time in the call center, watching everything and everyone like a hawk. I continued to do exactly what I was told to do. One day she would offer a prize, like a college hat, and then the next a long lecture about how everyone shouldn't be lazy. Over the course of December, I keep adding to the pile of unprocessed credit cards. It's a good 500 pages thick by now. Compared to the massive piles of sheets of no answers and left a message, it's not very noticeable. Naturally, someone in the alumni department has noticed that the donations coming in are down about 25% over November and December. This results in me coming back from Christmas break, where I get to meet Cool Chad, the new boss dude over the call center. He asks if my job includes processing credit cards. I told him Karen told me not to, but I was trained to process them. In fact, I'm the only one who has been trained in how to process them. He says, cool, please do process the credit cards. Cool Chad asks if there are any unprocessed credit card sheets. Oh yeah, there are. Cool Chad then asked me if I could get this done over the next couple of weeks. Oh, sure, no problem. I spent several hours over a couple of Saturdays processing the credit cards. Cool Chad has the absolutely best January ever in the history of the call center. So, why is Cool Chad Cool Chad? In February, Cool Chad gave me a raise from $8 an hour to $10 an hour. Thanks, Cool Chad. The last story is called Mealtime. I was working in healthcare as an HTA nurse. Around here, this is a nurse which travels around the city area doing health assessments that don't require 911 calls. They are reserved for emergency and paramedics that handle those cases. My job was essentially picking up the jobs which do not require an immediate response. I would try to treat the patient, either at home or, if not possible, give instructions on where they can get treatment for whatever ailment at the time. It was a job to assist people, so that they wouldn't come to HR with small injuries or illnesses which can be handled in the regular healthcare center the next working day. Also, another part was to go around and treat patients which had, for example, IV treatments regularly and administer the fluid treatment, etc. My issue was that I noticed that as we drove around this large area from one patient to another, we had to stop for our lunch at some point. And we had to pay for lunch from our own pocket, whatever it cost. This is common practice for example paramedics. They eat when they can, and usually at some gas station or so, somewhere where they currently are, and have time to eat. I usually read the contracts pretty carefully, which comes from my previous career as an engineer, where I had to make foolproof contracts and avoid stepping on traps. Our healthcare union had negotiated that if your work requires X amount of traveling, you should be entitled to a tax-free meal benefit. I wasn't completely sure if that particular statement would apply to the job I was doing, but I decided to ask stupid questions about it, and eventually forced my supervisor to contact the management to get a statement for the issue at hand. From management, it went to the legal department, and they began to delve into it. It lasted for weeks, since they couldn't quite deny it outright, but they eventually came to the conclusion that it couldn't be applied to the job that I had. I was a little annoyed at this, but decided not to contest it any more than that. But there was another statement that the union had negotiated for us. If we have an office or station in social space, we are entitled to have a lunch break of 30 minutes per day at the regular office where I leave every morning. Just a normal thing, which is backed by law as well around here. Lunch is holier than holy, if one can say so. As mentioned earlier, our area was rather large. If I was working in the northern parts, for example, it could take some 2-hour driving there, spending 4 hours with patients around that area and then driving back to the station in an 8-hour shift. So I agreed with the bosses that I drop the issue with the meal benefit and will eat at the office instead. And I agreed on this, and I got it in a written email that I could do that. So, not every day, but a few times a week, when I was assigned to some faraway area, I jumped into the car, drove there and did maybe one patient call. Then I had to hurry up back so I can begin my lunch break, then eat for 30 minutes and drive back to do another patient, and drive back. That's an awful lot of driving and wasted time. Eventually, I was confronted about this, and I explained that because I cannot afford to eat lunch every day, I just have to eat my own cooking at the office. And as we don't have the meal benefit, I am practically forced to drive back and forth so that I can have my prescribed by law lunch break. They were dumbfounded at first, but they could not squirm out of it at all. Problem was that the common practice had been for God knows how long that paramedics and such just went along and paid for their own meals, as they never knew better. They always had the possibility to go back to the station to eat. And I'm quite sure that we all were entitled to that meal benefit, since it is prescribed by law and union agreements in a way, that if you can't eat in a regular way at the office, you are entitled to the meal benefit instead. But no one had really contested it earlier. They were dumbfounded and asked me not to do it in the future. I responded by asking if they are going to get the meal benefit running for the department or not. Because if they are not going to do it, I am entitled to eat at the station. The discussion went on for a while, but eventually they caved in. They arranged a meal benefit for every nurse and paramedic in the department, as they couldn't find a way out otherwise. And they couldn't have us driving back and forth and not performing our job. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.